Yeah,
He was like, that is so
it's
disgusting. You're going to have a baby on our bed.
The scum everywhere. And I don't want that.
Birth is beautiful. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the No Higher Calling podcast. Simeon is with me today.
Hello.
And we're going to do something we have not done in a very long time. I actually had kind of forgotten that we had been doing this in the early days. And then I actually listened to another podcast of a couple and they did a Q&A. And I thought they're so fun. I love getting feedback from listeners. What exactly do you want to hear? So it's been probably, I would say, 4 years since we did one of these. But here we are.
4 years, but it's been a little bit.
It feels like we definitely haven't done one in Australia. We've done episodes, but we haven't done a Q&A here.
Yeah, we've never done a video one before either. And that's what we're doing this time around. So
yeah. So that feels like a lifetime. We've been here forever, haven't we? That's a good thing. We love our life here. Anyway, so yeah, if you're just listening to the audio on the podcast, welcome. Glad to have you. But we did decide to record this for the YouTube audience. So that will be available if you want to see our faces while we talk.
Do you want to let them know what you're sipping over there?
What I'm sipping? Well, they could probably guess because I'm almost in the third trimester of my pregnancy. So it's red raspberry leaf tea.
I've just got some coffee that was roasted at a local coffee place. When I say local, I mean like an hour and a half away, but it's really good.
Yeah.
It's really, really good.
Funny enough, it's summer here in Australia and it's like burning degrees outside. So we turned on the aircon, what they call here. And now this room is like freezing. So I have my hot tea and my blanket, which you can't see. But anyway, we want to answer some of your questions. So I did a poll on Instagram asking for questions. I got a lot of them, too many to tackle in one episode. So I got to pick my favorites. I don't know if these are my favorites, but there were several questions that were repeated or ones that I just thought are very relevant to where we're at in life. And so we want to tackle these. But first, to get us off the ground, actually one of my dear friends here asked, what is our favorite thing about each other?
You get to answer first one, I think.
Okay, so I started thinking about all of these things that I love about you, but they were directly connected to me. And so I thought that I don't want to do that. Like there are things that I love about you that better me or challenge me or strengthen me. But just about you as an individual, what's my favorite thing? There's probably several things. But one thing that has just come to mind over and over, and it's probably, again, just the season of life that we're in. But I love that you are so financially savvy.
Trying to be anyway.
That has been a blessing in our marriage from day one. I really respect that and appreciate that about you. That was something that really my parents didn't grow up having training in that area. Therefore, I didn't grow up having training in that area. So coming to marriage and feeling like you took finances seriously and really wanted to be a wise steward with our money has been something that I feel like has blessed our marriage in so many ways. That is also something that I tend to stress about. I stress about money. God has really grown me in that. But being able to trust that you are wise with our finances has really helped. So it's one of my favorite things about you.
Yeah. It's always nice to have a little bit more finances. That would be nice, wouldn't it?
But well, at least you handle well what God has given us. We are blessed people.
We are blessed people. We have no needs that God has not met. And so we're very thankful for that. I would say that one of my favorite things about you is probably one of the things that you don't like about yourself.
Oh boy.
And that is the constant need for improvement all the time.
I'm never enough.
Yeah, and it can be a bit dramatic at times, but it is actually one of the things that I think has helped you over time since when we first started out and both thought each other were perfect. And then You know, you hit about a year mark and you figure out you're not perfect.
You don't think I'm perfect?
And the other person figures out that you're not perfect either. And
Near perfect.
oh, but
Practically perfect in every way.
but that perfectionism bit in you also means that you have an understanding that there's a need for improvement and constantly trying to improve yourself. Or learn something new, even if it's not like fix something that's broken, but like learn something that you've not done before or tried before, and then sticking to it until you figure it out. And I think that's a good trait to have in general, but it's really great for a wife to have.
Okay, so the next question, how do you spend quality time together on a daily basis?
Yeah, I think we've talked about this to some extent already, because we've talked a lot about having an evening routine, having time in the evening when the kids go to bed. We have a very early bedtime. We're at a stage in life where that's an option for us, which is good.
We don't have teenagers yet.
Yeah. Actually, I was just reading a book last week, and it was talking about that aspect of like when the kids get older, you have to just say, okay, we're going by and leaving, you know? So I think protecting that time in the evening is important. Not everybody has that option because not everybody's schedule is exactly the same. You know, your schedule might afford you to have to work evenings or something like that. So, but you just have to, we've just chosen to pick a time and say, hey, this is what we're doing. And everything else goes away. That doesn't mean that we always spend the evening together. Sometimes we spend the evening reading next to one another. That's not really like a date night or anything, but we have that time available to us to say this time is already set aside. So if we do want to do something together, we can do that very easily and we don't have to make arrangements.
I think we've implemented a few habits in our home. One, our little kids do go to bed by 7. The older kids get to stay up till 8 or 8:30, but we've kind of trained that it's still a quiet time in our house. The whole dynamic of our home changes. The music changes, the lighting changes, the atmosphere changes. And they know that even though they get to stay up later, it's still going to be very quiet. So whether we are with them or some, I think one of our favorite things now is all of us piling, all of us and the older kids, we're all on the couch together with our books. And we're like the lineup of Brazzles reading their books. But usually, they know their cutoff is 8:30, they're in bed. And then we do have that time as a couple. We try to put distractions away. We don't do TV every night. Phones are away so that time is available. Like he said, whether we're actually intentionally playing a board game, that's something we really like to do. Or if we are kind of pursuing our own things, we're still together and available and not distracted by a lot of demands of the day, whether that be children or chores or responsibilities. We try to keep that evening time pretty sacred so that we're available to talk. You actually just bought me a table for outside, and it's been a little too hot and mosquito laden in the air to use it too much. But I have these dreams. Autumn is around the corner for us here in Australia. And so I can just see us sitting there in the evenings once everything's quiet and the kids are all in bed. And we have our tea and coffee, and we're sitting at the table just chatting about the day. I look forward to that, hopefully in a few weeks when it cools off a bit.
I think a lot of it too is just like we have dinner together too. And that's part of it. So the evening is already together. It's not separate. So we're basically together from dinner onwards. And it would be kind of hard to have dinner together and then not spend the evening together, right? Like you don't come home for dinner and then leave and go do something else. So you just have to jealously guard that time. And that does get harder, obviously, I'm sure, as the kids get older. We're not there yet, but when kids get older and they want to do stuff together, that can be more difficult, I imagine.
Okay, so another one that we have here is how to prioritize your marriage in difficult or stretching seasons where time and energy is limited. We've been there. We did an international move. That is a difficult and stretching season where time and energy was so limited.
Yeah. But I think the same thing was still true. We didn't do a lot in the evening. I kind of think the answer to both those questions is the same. We pretty jealously guarded our evenings. I would do some things around the house when we were moving and unpacking boxes in the evening and stuff like that. But even that, like, you're doing together. So it's not, I think I would lower your expectations about what spending time together looks like. Because spending time together does not have to look like a dinner date with homemade bread. You know, it can look like,
or going out to a restaurant, or
it can literally just be doing the same thing in the same place, and you're spending time and talking and like that. If you're doing that regularly, then the special date nights and stuff, you still do those things, but you don't, like I said earlier, you don't have to plan a time to do them because you already have a time that you do that. Like it's a set thing that you do all the time. So that's what I would say is I don't think it's going to be that difficult during busy seasons to do it when you've already established during the not busy seasons that we guard this particular set of time. And obviously, like if I'm out of town or something like that, then we can't have that time together, but we're still going to talk on the phone and there's things that we're going to do. And you have to make exceptions for exceptional times. But the truth is nobody has a busy season that lasts 2 years. Like you have pockets of time, you're just not using them wisely. So,
and that is something that I would say. If you find yourself in a busy or stretching season where you feel like you are at a low capacity, be very careful that the time that you do spend together is intentional. I know if you're tired, you probably just want to flop on the couch and watch a movie. And I'm not saying, I mean, you can bond and connect and we have movie nights and they're fun. There are some days where I'm like, I want to hang out, but my brain can't do a board game. Can we just cuddle and watch a movie? And those are fun. But if you're really trying to prioritize your marriage in a season that is stretching you, make sure that you have quality. You may not be able to have a ton of quantity, but you want to make sure that the time that you do spend together is quality time and not just kind of a absent vegging time. You want to really invest in your marriage.
Yeah, for sure. And usually people have pockets of time, like even if you're driving or something, spending that time together. Our life is a little different in that we're in ministry. So most of the places that I go and the people that I know are the same places and people that she knows. So we have that advantage. But it also means that we have like less to talk about when it's the "what did you do today" conversation, because she
I
already
always
knows.
have plenty to talk about.
She already knows. So
She's like same old, and I'm like, well, I've baked bread for the 200th time, but let me tell you about
it. But so if you don't have that, then you actually already have more to talk about than we do. Yeah. It's just a matter of spending that time together wisely. I think actually using that time to talk about things that you're learning, which is a lot of what our time is spent doing, talking to one another, which displays growth in the life of a person. And I think if you're not growing, then you're probably not going to have a good marriage anyway, because that's part of it, is helping one another grow.
And I think it's good to have some of those conversations and ask each other questions. Hey, it's busy. I get that. We're distracted. We have a lot going on, whatever it is. But how's our marriage? Are you feeling loved and cherished by me? What is something that I've done recently that made you feel appreciated? Is there a way that I could serve you better? And that's a question that both spouses need to be willing to ask of each other, and then make improvements. But I think especially in busy seasons, it can be easy to be in a busy season. And I know we've been there. And then you just kind of disconnect a bit and then life slows down, but you're in this state of disconnect and it's hard to kind of come back around sometimes. So communication is huge, making sure that you are still touching base with each other. And that doesn't have to look like going out for dinner or some big lengthy thing, but hey, just before bed, how are we doing? How are you feeling? Are you getting enough? I know we're busy. I know we have a lot going on, but I see you're important to me. I wrote down a couple of things here. Remember that after your relationship with the Lord, your marriage is your greatest priority. I've talked about priorities before on the podcast. There's a lot of great books and resources out there on helping you find your priorities. You cannot have 20 priorities. If you have 20 priorities, nothing will be priority because you can't do that much. Yeah. What are your non-negotiables? It should be first and foremost your relationship with the Lord. If you're married, it should be a relationship with your spouse. If you have children, it should be your relationship with your children. And really, after those three things come other things in life. So how do you prioritize your marriage? I understand that different seasons can bring different levels of difficulty in that area, but your marriage should be one of those non-negotiable priorities. Whether we have all the time in the world and we're empty nesters and we get to, sit on the beach like we talk about, which probably is never going to happen because realistically, no, and that's not what we want. But whether we have all the time in the world or we are really stretched thin and there's just not a lot to give, what I do have to give after I've given to the Lord has to be given to him, even over the kids.
I wonder too, if it isn't a matter of like I was saying earlier, we do a lot of things together because of the nature of what we do,
Mm.
but that's only half true. Like, you don't have to do the things with me, but you choose to, or I ask you to. Um, and I would say that if you're in a season where things are especially busy, it's more important than ever probably for you to actually say, "Hey, can you do this with me?" Or "Can I do this with you?" Because that way you may be still working, you're busy, you're still working, but you're doing things together that otherwise you would be doing things separately. Even if it's something as simple as folding laundry together or something, but you're together. And I think that a lot of the busyness, people get distant because they're not doing busy together. If you're doing busy together, it doesn't feel as busy. But it also allows you to spend that time together that otherwise you would have to spend apart. And I think that's a huge chunk of it.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that because there have been specific times, even just recently, where we've maybe just had a crazy day. Normally, I try very hard that my evening is free. I don't have chores, the laundry's done, whatever. But we've had some busy days, and you have helped me with odds and ends recently so that we are together, we're still talking, and it's getting done twice as fast. But it also really makes me appreciate your help and your awareness of, wow, she had a really stressful day. I could help her out in this,
Yeah.
and we could be together.
Like Saturday, like we do outreach on Saturdays. Having Brettnay and the kids actually slows me down a great deal. We could do a lot more if we
I
didn't.
waddle to the best of my ability.
It's not so much you, it's more the kids. But I could do more. I could get more done if they weren't there. But if they come, even if we don't actually do the outreach portion of it together because other church members are there and sometimes we split into separate groups, we have the 30 minutes there and the 30 minutes back. That's a full hour that we're spending together, even if it's just sitting in a car, but we're chatting and we're talking or we're listening to something together.
That's
So
good for our whole family too.
any time you can spend together in those busy seasons, because you might not get every night 2 hours in the evening like we would love to have during those busy seasons. If you're not getting that, you need to get that time together somewhere, and spending busy together is the best way to do that.
And be okay with saying no to things. If you're in a busy season and you feel like your marriage might be suffering, it's not the time to spend time with friends.
Hmm.
Friends are great. I'm thankful for them. But again, you remember your priorities. You can't do everything. You may have to give up and just golf with the guys, dinner with a friend, so that you can invest in your marriage. That will be a worthy investment. And like he said, that season doesn't last forever. And then you can come through and do all the things that you love. Just really quick, a couple other things. Pray together for the challenge that God has placed in your lives. There are so many different reasons why we might feel busy or stretched or like we're drifting. There's a lot of reasons why time or energy might be limited. Maybe you need to talk through that as a couple. Hey, are you overwhelmed in motherhood? Are you in postpartum? Is there some way that he could help? That's been real conversations that we've had. We're about to have another baby. I will be stretched. But I still want my marriage to be a priority, even in a very unique season. And so we've communicated on, okay, what does this need to look like for our marriage to still thrive? Another thing that I would just say here is, even if you feel like you have so little time and so little energy and so much on your plate, invest in the physical intimacy of your marriage. Don't let that be something that gets pushed off because I'm too tired or I'm not interested. At the end of the day of doing all the things, it's one more thing. Keep that part of your marriage, invest in that, because that is something that really helps draw you closer. And I think is important, especially in those stretching seasons where you're already feeling pulled from a lot of other angles. That can be almost just like a haven, a safe space where you can let go of all of the things and just enjoy being with one another.
Yeah. Temptation tends to hit in those seasons more than it does in other seasons.
Yes. When you're tired, when you're distracted, when you're stretched.
Yeah.
That's
when people get in trouble, right? That's when that's typically exactly when the flesh starts attacking you and Satan starts attacking you, and you really need the strength of your partner, and the temptation is to neglect your partner instead. And so that's, you need the person that God gave you that marriage with. That person ties you, they ground you, they help you when you're weak. That's what they're there for. So you have to be very careful not to neglect that in those times in which you're busy. That's exactly when you need them the most to help you deal with your own spiritual temptations and things.
Yeah. So another question, how can I support my husband in ministry best while also prioritizing the kids? I think we've already touched on this a little bit. Your marriage comes first. I've heard it time and again. One of the greatest gifts that you can give to your children is a vibrant, godly marriage. And if that means that they come back seat, that's okay. Your marriage is that next priority under your relationship with the Lord. Your children are important too. I'm not saying don't invest in that. That is extremely important. But that comes after marriage.
Yeah.
But you might be able to specifically how to support a husband in ministry while juggling.
Yeah. And if your husband is in ministry, it can depend on what they mean by ministry exactly. If we're talking about the pastorate, I like to tell people that the pastor's wife's only obligation is the pastor. Everybody thinks that she's supposed to lead Bible studies and she's supposed to do all this other stuff. Maybe she can do that. My wife can, and she does a great job, but she doesn't have to. And anybody that's putting that obligation on you is somebody who doesn't understand the role of the pastor's wife. The role of the pastor's wife is to be the wife of the pastor. And so that is her primary responsibility, is to care for him as her husband. She does not have any qualifications in the Bible. She does not have any obligations in the Bible. Now, if your ministry in particular is like a children's ministry in which you operate as a husband-wife duo, that may be a different thing. But I'm just coming from the pastoral perspective.
Yeah. And I feel like we can only speak to us. You're asking these questions of us, so we're going to answer them in our season. I will say I have felt like as pastor's wife, especially in this season of homeschooling and having little children, the best way that I can support you is obviously investing in our marriage, doing that work, but also in trying to make home a haven. You're out in the city, you're dealing with people, you're dealing with problems, you're dealing with all different kinds of things. Part of my ministry to you, like I said, especially in this season where so much of my life is home centered, is trying to make our home a safe and happy place. Everybody is well fed. Things are clean and tidy. The children are educated and happy and thriving. And I'm not saying that everything is perfect here, but that it's an environment when you come back at the end of the day where you are happy to be there, where you feel comfortable. And that is a huge ministry to my entire home, to my children, to my husband.
Most people don't think about people in ministry, the kinds of things that they deal with on a regular basis. It is different than going to a job. It's not a job in the same sense, although it's work, but it's not a job in the same sense. There are mental, emotional, and spiritual strains that people in ministry have to deal with, and things that they know about the people that they have to look at on Sunday. And, things that they have heard other people tell them that so-and-so said this or did that, or whatever that thing is. And they have to be able to push through that mentally and spiritually and emotionally and still love and take care of those people. So when they're going through all of that during the day and then they come home, it's probably more necessary for somebody in ministry to come home to a place that is a haven, that is peaceful. That can't always happen. Like, we raise kids.
Some
it's a
days
real
it's
world.
chaos,
And some days it's not great.
You'll
But
still hear hymns wafting in the background.
if you can hear it over
hopefully
all
a
of the
smile
kids.
on my face.
But yeah, it's not that she has to put on airs or pretend like, everything was just hunky-dory all day. But there is a sense in which the home is supposed to be a man's castle. It's supposed to be a peaceful place. And the wife is a huge part of that. She's probably 95% of the attitude of the home. If the attitude of the home is not one of peacefulness and calm, it's yeah, sure, sometimes it's just that the kids are that crazy, but there is if the dad is the structure of the home, the mom is the heart of the home. And so that a large part of that falls on you. So I don't want to be like, it's all your fault, because that's not the case. But when a man comes home, especially a man in ministry, there's a certain amount of peace that he needs to be able to unwind his brain so that he can then minister to his family properly. And I would not use that as an excuse for a man who is not taking care of his family. So don't think I'm trying to make it as an excuse. But a peaceful home. I mean, honestly, if you can provide a home that is peaceful for a man in ministry, that is paramount. A place where he can actually unwind and feel relaxed, even if he's working on something at the house.
Mm. That kind of leads into the next question. Somebody asked about balance. How do you find balance in ministry and marriage and motherhood? And I am assuming that was asked of us in particularly because we kind of tick those boxes. And I've talked about that. I actually did like a 2-part thing on balancing. I'm trying to remember. Balancing motherhood and life and marriage and even homeschooling, finding balance there. And again, the seasons of life change, your capacity changes in different seasons. We have very much felt like in this season, my focus is on the home. God gave us our family before he gave us our church. Now, I love our church. I love being pastor's wife. You love being pastor. I do lead a monthly ladies Bible study. I have a chat group where I try to encourage our women. Like, I am plugged in, but we've been very careful that we've allowed the space for me to invest most of my energy at this time in life in the home, in our home and our marriage, in our children, especially as I'm educating them at home. A different season will come and it will look different. And I may have more capacity to do more, to be involved in more things. Like he said earlier, a lot of the ministry that we do as a family unit. And so that has been helpful. He's there to help me with the kids. But I think balance is something people come to. People ask me about this one all the time. And I think it's just because we have so many plates spinning. When you're in ministry, there are a lot of demands. People need you. You feel very needed. Your kids need you. Your husband needs you. There's only so much of me. And I think so much of that comes back to, again, those priorities. What are my priorities? Am I keeping those in list with God's priorities for my life and God's expectations of me, not someone else's expectations, not, hey, we're stepping into this church and the previous pastor's wife did XYZ. So I feel like I need to know what is God's expectations. And if you're in ministry, God has uniquely called you as a couple. And really, I mean, we even believe as a family unit at this stage in our family to that calling, which means he brings something to the table. I bring something to the table that is very unique. I'm not going to do everything like every other pastor's wife. I may do some things better. I may do some things worse. But God's asked us to be plugged in to this church with these people, which means that he's chosen us for that. And so I think just trying to keep those priorities in check has really been helpful. And thankfully, our people are sweet. I mean, they've really respected the fact that I'm a busy mom. I'm about to have my 6th kid. I'm homeschooling. They know that I'm there if they need them. But some of our other women, little things. Hey, I will text everybody and make sure they're coming to Bible study. I'll get the head count. I will host it at my home so you don't have to. Little things like that have been such a blessing for me personally because some of that load is spread.
Yeah. I think one of the things that our sponsoring church pastor said to us a while back that I think was really well said was that he was talking about spending time with your kids and just how that people say it's quality time over quantity time. But he said, if you don't have the quantity time, you won't have the quality time. I think when you're talking about balance, we imagine the scales and you're putting one thing on another, right?
How can I get my ministry life to equal my marriage, to equal my...
And there is a sense in which you want to do that. There is another sense in which it's not always possible to keep everything balanced at one time. So, but there may be a portion of your life where one is heavier than the other, but it can't stay that way forever. They have to balance back out at some point.
And that really comes back to what we were talking about earlier, I think, too, with communication. If you are in a very stressful ministry season, you're dealing with a situation, you're dealing with a person, you're dealing with a problem. You don't have to tell me all of those details, but when you communicate to me, I'm carrying something really heavy. It's on my mind. It's on my heart. It's weighing me down. Then I know Okay, well, we probably shouldn't play a board game tonight,
Or maybe we need to
or
get your
maybe
mind
we need,
off of it.
again, communicating. Okay,
Yeah.
so are you up for a board game tonight, or would you rather spend time just reading or relaxing, or would taking a walk? But I think communication. I think we've been married what, almost 12 years, 12 years in July. I think one of the biggest things I've learned in 12 years of marriage is to just communicate. So much can be solved, so much can be avoided if you just are open with each other, obviously in humility and not, berating each other, and
Yeah.
but just
But
talking.
that takes a certain measure of selflessness.
It also takes a friendship. We had Scott Pauly on, and he talked about how
Yeah.
that friendship river that kind of is the current of your marriage, the foundation of your marriage
Yeah,
that
you
you
have to
build
be
on.
friends. You have to. It doesn't work if you're not. But there is a certain measure of selflessness that's required in that my job is to make sure that her needs are met, and her job is to make sure that my needs are met. And in doing so, both our needs get met, and they get met in a way that builds our relationship. Whereas if I'm meeting my needs by meeting my own needs, and she has to meet her own needs, maybe both of our needs get met. They probably won't, but maybe both of our needs get met, but they don't do so in a way that builds our relationship.
Mm.
And so I think that's a big chunk of that work-life balance is, okay, one, can you say the word no? Right, that's very important that you learn to say that word, either to your family members from time to time or to things at work slash church or ministry or whatever the thing is. You need to learn to say no, and you need to learn when to say no, because we went. I mean, both of us know, we know several people, but one person in particular that I'm thinking of was one of those people who never said no to anything and almost lost his whole family because of it. And so you have to learn how to tell even the people who are the most influential and important people sometimes in your life, that this is absorbing so much time, it's causing failure in another area of my life. And so I have to say no here. That means, though, that you have to be able to recognize when things are starting to not work, which means you have to be paying attention. You can't be on autopilot. And I think a lot of people just live their life on autopilot. And then when things fall apart, it's like, how did this happen?
I think it's good to remember too, God hasn't asked anybody else to be Simeon Brazel's wife. He hasn't asked anybody else to be my husband. And he hasn't asked anybody else to be the parent of our children. Those are a handful of roles in which we are irreplaceable. Now, God, something might happen to us and someone else would step in. But in this current moment, with all of us being alive and well, other people can do some other responsibilities. Maybe you've tackled too much. That's one thing we've tried to do starting out a church. And at times it's felt a little odd, is we haven't had all of the ministries that other churches have to offer. But that's because we knew, hey, church planting, if we sign up for everything, we lead everything. And we couldn't do that and sustain our family, sustain our health, sustain our calling. So even to this day, there are some things that we just can't offer at our church in this season, but it has allowed us to fully invest ourselves into the things that we have made available. And then again, in those areas where we are irreplaceable, those hold the biggest priority in our lives and in our hearts.
Yeah. What are the things that God's given you to do? Everything else takes second place, third place, fourth place, right? Whatever the things are that for a fact, these are my God-given responsibilities. For me, one of those things is pastoring. It is a God-given responsibility. But if I lose my family, I'm no longer fit to be a pastor. Right? It's part of the qualifications of a pastor. So for me, this responsibility is still more important than that responsibility in that regard.
So that kind of goes to the next question. Somebody asked about cultivating a godly marriage as a couple in ministry. A ministry that God desires for us to have is going to be an overflow of things like a godly marriage, because again, that is so priority. Number one is your relationship with the Lord. If your relationship with the Lord is not strong, your ministry will suffer. If your marriage is not a godly, strong marriage, your ministry will suffer. Your home, your family, it's this trickle down effect. If there is chaos in the home, and problems with the children. And I get everybody has free will, and sometimes there are things beyond control, or you're just working on a child to come to maturity. But if there's just constant trouble and strife and a lack of Christ-likeness, that will greatly impact ministry. So sometimes I think some of the best things you can do for your ministry is to make sure that you are doing what you can to pursue Christ in those most intimate areas and relationships.
Well, everything, literally everything you do in life, especially in ministry, but everything you do in life will flow out of your own personal well. Like it's going to come out of your own personal relationship with God. So your marriage is not struggling because your marriage is struggling. Your marriage is struggling because either your wells run dry or the other person's wells run dry. Because if you have your own personal relationship with God, right, that by definition is going to cause every other relationship that you have to be right, at least on your end. So either your well is running dry or their well is running dry, and you are ministering to other people. I mean, that's one thing that I've heard 1.5 million times. It's very true. It's harder to actually do than to say, but you cannot constantly pour out without at some point filling yourself back up. So in ministry, that's true. In marriage, that's true. You cannot properly invest in your spouse if you yourself are not filled with the Spirit, filled with the Word of God, filled in your relationship and fulfilled in your relationship with Christ. I cannot be a good husband to her if my relationship with Christ is not right. She cannot be a good wife to me if her relationship with Christ is not right. So really, that's what it comes down to. It's not as much about working on the marriage, although you do need to be purposeful about that. But the fact is, you will be purposeful about that if you're taking proper care of your relationship with Christ, because the Holy Spirit is going to go, you need to work on your marriage with your wife. Nobody will have to tell you that. You won't need a marriage conference for that. You'll need the Holy Spirit for that. And if your relationship is right with God and you're really working on your relationship with Him, He will make sure that you're working on your relationship with your wife. And then your ministry will flourish much better for more than one reason, but especially because your relationship with God is right. And then also because your relationship with your family and your spouse is right. Everything else chain reacts after that.
It'll be a huge blessing to your people to have a godly pastor, a pastor's wife, youth pastor, missionary, whatever, Sunday school teacher, whatever the role is. We're not going to be perfect this side of heaven, but I love that Scott Pauley says we're never going to be sinless on earth, but we should be sinning less and less.
Yeah.
And especially people in ministry, but even at the top, pastor and pastor's wife, God has set those positions to be an example. Specifically the pastor, He has asked him to be the under shepherd of his flock, to be an example to the believers. And that is not something that we should take lightly. That is a high calling. That is a high responsibility. And with that comes a reality that we have to be intentional about our walk with the Lord and our relationship and our home life. Because when that is thriving and when that is Christ-like, it really blesses the people that we minister to. And God can use that as an example of the fruits of the Spirit, of attributes that believers are to have.
Yeah. I'm reading a book right now, and the author was talking about how when he was first starting out in ministry, he got put in charge of a youth department. He was like a youth pastor. And he said it hit him like a ton of bricks that he didn't know how to study his Bible. And he actually had to go and ask his wife how to show him how to study his Bible as a youth pastor. My question is, how on earth did you end up a youth pastor in the first place? But the fact of the matter is, there's a lot of people in ministry who genuinely they love the work of ministry, but they don't always love the Christ of ministry the way they should. And really what it boils down to is, what's your relationship with Jesus look like? I mean, that really is what it all comes down to. And that will affect your marriage and everything else.
All right. So we're going to totally switch topics. I feel like a lot of these questions kind of have had the same vibe.
We got heavy there for a
so
minute.
Hopefully that's been helpful to you. And again, we are sharing things that have convicted and have taught us and guided us. But someone asked, what was your gut reaction when Brettnay first said the words home birth. So this would have been in 2020 when I was 34 or 35 weeks pregnant with Ivy.
You were talking about home birth before that. You were talking about home birth when we first found out we were expecting Ivy.
So context, my first 2 were hospital births that were not terrible, but they did have some wonky things that were completely avoidable had certain interventions and things not been done. I didn't know anything.
I think you had talked about home birth before that too. We just had opted not
Well,
to
with
do
number
that.
3, we thought we're going to try for a natural, no epidural, natural birth at the hospital was the route we were going to take.
Yeah.
And then COVID threw the world into a tailspin. And so when I came to you hugely pregnant at the very end,
Yeah.
and said, my doula said I can have this baby at home and we don't have to deal with the crazy COVID stuff at the hospital.
Yeah. I think at that point, though, I was pretty sold because they were telling me I wasn't even going to be able to be in the room and stuff like that. So there was no convincing at that point. The first time you talked about home birth, I thought that's like, that's what wacky, ladies that wear hairnets and stuff do.
Hairnets? I mean, you probably just offended someone. I was thinking more like the rebellious hippie crowd. Maybe?
Yeah, well, that too. Yeah, that too. But I was thinking more like, Amish or something.
Okay.
But
what else did you? There was one thing that you were like, I can't stomach this aspect of having a baby at home.
It's gross. Yeah,
he was like, that is so disgusting. You're going to have a baby on our bed.
The scum everywhere. And
birth is beautiful. Where have you been the past 5, almost 6 babies? I have a different opinion
now. They asked about my opinion when you first asked me.
So he was freaked out about the mess.
And also the medical side of things, like what happens if there's a complication or, start bleeding out or something. What do you do?
So I found a midwifery group in Knoxville, Tennessee, where we were living at the time, that did home births. And on their FAQ page, the very first question at the top said, what about the mess? And so I was like, read this, honey. They say they clean everything and leave it better than when they came, which was 100% true.
Yeah, they did great.
They even did my laundry. The dress that I wore when I birthed Ivy, and like immediately grabbed her to my chest, they washed, and I wear it to this day. You would never know that scum was all over my dress. And then I called them and they said, we will do a consult with you and your husband, completely free. We will just talk. And so we went to that. And let me just say, if anybody is considering a home birth, do that. Do that. If your husband is like, and just at least ask him, could we at least hear them out? Because going there, hearing they knew what they were doing. They were trained for emergency situation. It wasn't some weird hokey thing.
Yeah.
Like, I think that really puts you, both of us,
and there are
weird
hokey things out there. So ask all the questions, you know. But I think that's what put me at ease, was that I was able to ask intelligent questions and get intelligent answers. For most men, that's, we want to know that she's taken care of, the baby's taken care of, that if something goes haywire, there's a plan, and that it's a good plan, that kind of stuff. So I think that was what did it for me, was just actually going and asking the questions. But that first reaction was, we're going to get some.
It was,
we're going to get some nun and there's going to be blood on the floor.
How am I going to scrub this out of the carpets? We have a white comforter. Okay, so really quick as we wrap up, specific postpartum plans for Simeon to help you while you recover. We did a whole podcast episode. Was that after we had Flora? Before we had Flora?
I don't remember. I know we've done at least one.
It was maybe 4 or 5. We did a whole podcast episode because I will say this is an area where Simeon does so well. Not initially in the early children, but again, I did not communicate what I need. We didn't know what I needed. We were brand new to this. We also had a lot more family structure at the time, so family was able to help. So though he didn't really step in in a lot of ways that he does now, I didn't feel neglected or like there was a dearth, just because we could spread out our kids. We could spread out needs and
in the early
responsibilities.
days, my mom took the kids. So all I had to deal with was you and baby.
Yeah.
Which is different now because we don't have that option. But
whole different dynamic. Not only do we not have that option, but we're in higher numbers. I mean, we're not adding 1, 2, 3 to our family. We're adding 6 to our family, which does bring a whole nother level of
at the same time
demands and challenge.
Like, the older ones are a lot more helpful than they would have been, years ago. So
Eden loves being queen of the castle. I mean, she's like, teach me how to roast a chicken, teach me how to bake the sourdough. I've got this, Mom. And she really, she's probably your right hand too, because she knows how to start the laundry machine. She knows what you don't know. She can fill in the gaps. But as far as specific things, again, that episode, I'll link it down in the comments in the show notes if you want to check it out.
And you do a lot of the prep before anything happens, so that there's no questions for me. Like, there's a plan in place. I just follow the plan. It's not that.
I try to communicate well. I try to set you up for success as much as I can. That means meals in the freezer, paper plates. We don't normally use paper plates, but hey, that's one small little thing. And here we've got a few months left. So this is little thing as the budget allows, like, hey, I'm going to pick up some postpartum things. I'm going to grab some paper plates, some, disposable, whatever, just to help the process be as smooth as possible, even now. And we work hard to train our children in habits and different things that they do. But even a little bit more so as we are coming to a season of baby, there are a few cleaning things that I'm trying to help teach them. Like, okay, this is your room. You have the living room. Let's look around the room. What are things that we need to get the living room clean and in order? Just so, yes, you carry a lot of that, but you also have a bunch of little helpers who are thrilled to help daddy. So that is a blessing of having more children and older children.
Yeah. It just has to be a part of the plan. Like take the time off work. Some places these days will let the man have paternity leave. Not everywhere does that, and not every job will do that, but a lot of them will. And even if they don't, like, it takes 9 months to have a baby, so don't take a holiday and take the time off for the postpartum. Just think that through ahead of time.
I feel like this was not the way of thinking for our parents' generation, for our grandparents' generation. But it's not just my baby, it's our baby. And while, yes, it's my body that goes through all of it, we're a team in this. And I feel like postpartum has really highlighted that. And it has been something that I've so appreciated, especially probably in the last Willow, Flora, and then this baby to come. Again, because we haven't had a lot of family, you've really stepped in those first 2 weeks. You pretty much change your schedule to where your mom and dad in so many ways for those 2 weeks. And while, 2 weeks can feel like a long time, and probably by the time it's over, you're like, whew, I'm glad to just get back to some of my responsibilities. We have found that if I can just rest, recover, heal, snuggle, establish breastfeeding, get some sleep, all of those things that are so desperately important in the beginning, it serves me and our entire family so much better long term. Because I took some of that in the beginning, whereas there's been other pregnancy or postpartums where I've really pushed too far, and then that prolongs my recovery, that prolongs my hormone stability, that prolongs my emotional, recovery.
I think a lot of it, we've talked about communication a bunch of times, but that's a big part of it. And it's not just communication with your spouse, communication with your local church, with your friends, with your family members, anybody that can or should help. If you feel like you're all alone, it's probably because you haven't told anybody. So if you're in a good Bible believing church, there ought to be people in your church that you can say, hey, I'm going to have this baby. When that happens, these are some things that I might need from you, or I might need from you to help me get some people in the church to help with whatever this thing is, especially if you're on your own, or if your husband is unable for whatever reason to get off of work, or whatever the thing is, even if it's just like 1 or 2 days, having somebody fill in. But you have to think ahead and prepare for those things. For me personally, we have people, like our church is amazing, but we have people who want to step in and help. But for me, I know Brettnay, she doesn't want a bunch of people at the house.
My nest is my nest. Don't enter my
So
nest for 2 weeks.
yeah, she just wants to snuggle the baby. She doesn't want to talk to you. She doesn't want you to even look at her baby.
I just want to sit there looking absolutely atrocious and basking in the glory
She looks great.
of a 7-pound newborn. Oh, I can't wait. It's the best thing
She put
in the
7 pounds
entire
in there
world.
on purpose.
Yeah, I've had a 10-pounder.
But my job is to help protect that, mainly not just for her to enjoy it, but for her to be able to heal. People don't heal well when there's things that they're thinking about and worrying about and wondering if people are going to be there on time or who's bringing the meals today or all of that stuff. Just take care of it ahead of time. That way there's no questions about whose jobs are what. A good church will surround that person and help that person. Usually there's at least one lady in the church who just loves dealing with that stuff and who's organization master. And that person can be a good person to lean on for stuff like that. And if you ask, the worst they can say is no, or I can't. But if you don't ask, then you get bitter. So just ask.
Yeah, and I think that bringing it back to just the marriage relationship, that's been big. Instead of me sitting there being like, why hasn't he noticed that my cup of water is empty? Doesn't he know that I'm nursing his child? Like, I need a full cup. Why not just say, hey, babe, do you mind to fill my water? Like, it's so much easier. And I really think the huge thing that has helped us so much is the thinking ahead. And that is what I do. So maybe that just is easier for me. But I try to think through so many things. Even I know specifically with Flora, one thing that I really tried to just kind of help give you some insight, because usually I'm the one that's home all day with the kids. So I know our rhythms and how things tend to go better or how things tend to go worse. When I had Flora, I told you, look, if you can take them out to a park, whatever you want to do in those morning hours, you can pretty well be guaranteed, because of our children's ages, that they're either going to take a nap or they're going to want to chill in the afternoon. So I get that your entire life can't stop for 2 weeks. But if you can invest those morning hours, get them outside, burn energy, just go have fun, then you'll probably get the afternoon to have a break, to get some work done, to chill. And that's also very sweet for me, because I can sit there and not feel guilty necessarily of just reading a book and holding a baby and snuggling, because I know the kids are having fun, Simeon's having fun. These are special seasons for the entire family. A transition is happening. Everybody is feeling it. But it's a sweet time that he can bond with the kids in a unique way that doesn't happen. I mean, you don't normally just carve out 2 weeks to hang out at the house. But also, like I said, thinking through some of those things helps him know, hey, instead of all of us just staying home and being loud, and then I can't really sleep, and the baby's disturbed, and everybody's going stir crazy because they've been trapped in the house and there's nothing to do and everybody's bored. Just trying to think through what rhythms work really well for our family, for our kids, for the stages that we're in, and how can I hand those off to him, again, with setting him up for success in those areas.
Setting others up for success in general is just a good plan. If you want to be able to ask for time off again, as a guy, as the worker, going to the job, whatever the thing is that you do, get all the stuff that needs done ahead of time, or at least make a plan for it to get done. Like for me, I know during that 2 weeks, I'm not going to get a lot of study in, right? I'm just not. So that means that then the weeks prior, I need to get the study in ahead of time, so that when the time comes, or I need to work it out to where I have somebody preaching, or I have this going on or that going on. And then I don't have to worry about it. Not only do I not have to worry about it, but the church people don't have to worry about it. And the job people don't have to worry about it. And whatever's going on is done already. It's sorted. So then I'm just thinking, like, as an employer, if I had an employee who was taking 2 weeks off, but before he left, he had everything lined up for everybody, and there was no question about who needed to do what. The next time that guy asks time off, I'm going to say, yep, go ahead. It's all right. It's good, because I know he'll take care of it. So just help people succeed and you'll be just fine. And that's part of it.
And postpartum, really, for all of its uncomfortable, challenging, lack of sleep things, it really is probably one of my absolute favorite seasons in life. It is so fast. It doesn't always feel like that in the moment, but it goes so, so fast. And those babies grow so quick, and it's all blur and it's behind you. But it has meant the world to me that you help me keep that time sacred and allow me the space to heal, to enjoy it for all it's worth. And then that season moves on and we're back to life as normal. Well, as normal as it can be. It always changes dynamics a bit when you add a new
I don't
child.
know what normal is anymore.
But you find a new normal. You find new rhythms. But life will get back to me being on my feet and out of bed and doing things, and you back to all the things that you do. But it's really meant so much to me and our marriage that you have made that a priority and have really sought to work with me in the thinking and the planning and the execution of it to make that a very special time.
I'm expecting you to push my wheelchair someday. So
are you scoring brownie points right now? One day I'll change your diaper.
It's got to be my turn at some point.
Oh goodness. On that note, we're gonna go ahead and close out and let you guys go. Thank you so much for joining us. We love answering your questions. Super fun. Hopefully something that we shared was helpful or encouraging. But thanks so much for joining both of us on the podcast.